Thank you for connecting early. We hope you had an opportunity to view the film Savvy and are ready for an exciting panel discussion. We want you to have the best experience this evening. So before we get started, here are a few tips. Hopefully you are hearing this message, but if not very well, make sure you check the volume settings. There are two places to control the volume: your device that you are watching this live stream on, and also in the bottom right-hand corner of this screen. You should see a chat box just to the right. Make sure you enter your name and join to connect with all guests today. Try it out by letting us know where you are joining from. We encourage you to keep your mobile device handy. There will be opportunities for you to support the mission of HFLA, and we want to make it easy for you to do so. And last but not least, if you need technical support, let us know in the chat box and we will do our very best to assist you.
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Savvy panel discussion hosted by HFLA of Northeast Ohio. My name is Laura Kleinman, and I am board president of HFLA, and I'm really excited to be able to have this conversation this evening. If you are unfamiliar, HFLA has been providing 0% interest loans to the Northeast Ohio community since 1904. Our loans provide accessible financial options for individuals who are unable to obtain conventional forms of capital. When we first saw the trailer for the documentary Savvy, we immediately knew this was an important film and that we needed to share it with our community. HFLA's interest-free loans are dispersed to all residents of Northeast Ohio, regardless of gender, ethnicity, or creed. However, there is one demographic group that consistently makes up the majority of our loan recipients, and that is women. Women earn 82 cents for every dollar earned by men, and the statistic is worse for Black women and Latinas. Women hold 2/3 of student loan debt in the US compared to men, and women invest in the stock market at lower rates than men, and women of color invest at far lower rates than white women and men. Yes, some of this is due to lack of capital in the first place, but some of it is due to the fact that we, women, have been taught that financial products are not for us, and we'll get into that more later. I want to also extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists, Robin Hauser, Margaret Mitchell, and Heather Ettinger. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this important conversation. Now I would like to welcome our panel sponsor, Kirsten Pianka, for some opening remarks.
Good evening, my name is Kirsten Pianka. My mom Karen and I are pleased to sponsor HFLA's panel discussion on the documentary Savvy and the importance of female financial empowerment with director Robin Hauser, YWCA's Margaret Mitchell, and Luma Wealth Advisors Heather Ettinger. Research shows that women receive less financial literacy education and as a result display less confidence than men in this area. Add to this lower wages and a higher life expectancy, we see higher rates of poverty in women over 65 than their male counterparts. According to the United Way of Greater Cleveland, this data is present in Cuyahoga County. Regardless of race or ethnicity, gender and race wage gaps exist as women earn less than their male counterparts. The pandemic has exacerbated an already existing cycle of economic disparities and highlighted the other contributing factor, that women are far more likely than men to leave the labor force to care for children or other family members. For these reasons, it is vital that women are equipped with the necessary tools to achieve personal financial success. We are so grateful that HFLA is such a valuable resource to the community and advocates so strongly for the economic self-sufficiency and growth of Northeast Ohioans.
Good evening. Thank you for being here and for allowing me to welcome you all to this wonderful event. My name is Jill Hennessy, and I lead commercial banking for PNC Bank in Cleveland. PNC is committed to supporting both women in business as well as women-owned businesses. We have over 250 employees in Cleveland who, like me, have become PNC Certified Women's Business Advocates, which means we have a deliberate focus on understanding the different needs of women and how they manage their finances and businesses. Recently, PNC launched Project 257, Accelerating Women's Financial Equality, an initiative designed to help close the 257-year economic gender gap and expand on PNC's commitment to support female financial decision makers. Astonishing, right? You may be questioning the 257-year gender gap. The name Project 257 is derived from the World Economic Forum's 2020 Global Gender Gap Report that found at the current pace of progress, it will take another 257 years for women to catch up to men from an economic perspective. As a woman, I found this study to be quite shocking. But I am also proud to work for an organization like PNC who is tackling this issue head on by supporting and empowering women, like all of us, to do great things. PNC is leveraging the power of our resources to make a positive difference and help women move forward financially. A primary reason for the 257-year economic gender gap that we believe we have the experience to help address, and one that is a subject near and dear to HFLA as well as PNC, is unequal access to credit. It's hard to believe that there are still 72 countries where some women don't have the right to open a bank account or to obtain credit. And even though U.S. laws provide women with equal access to credit, studies consistently show disparities between men and women when it comes to securing business loans and consumer financing. To expand access to credit for women, as part of Project 257, PNC has established a 3-year, $1.257 million partnership with the global organization SheEO. SheEO, like HFLA, provides interest-free loans, typically in the $100,000 range, to women and non-binary entrepreneurs. It also connects these entrepreneurs to global ecosystems or women who share their experience and to connections to help them thrive and scale. SheEO is now accepting applications through November 1st for its 2022 cohort of ventures. I encourage you to check out our website, pnc.com/women, to learn more about our partnership with SheEO, SheEO's loans, and how to get involved. Savvy is about women, money, and freedom. It aligns with PNC and Project 257 so well, and we are proud to be here to support you. Supporting this event is part of our commitment to supporting the communities where we live and work. Thanks to HFLA for hosting this important event and for providing interest-free loans to promote self-sufficiency and growth of entrepreneurs in Cleveland.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Michal Marcus. I'm the Executive Director of HFLA of Northeast Ohio and your moderator for tonight. Yesterday, HFLA hosted a screening of the documentary Savvy. The film explores the historical, cultural, and societal norms around women and money, why it is critical for women to take control of their personal finances, and examine why they often do not. We are eager to highlight an issue that we see every day in our work. I hope you had the opportunity to view the film and have come away with ideas of how to personally take charge of your finances and to support or encourage other women to do so as well. HFLA of Northeast Ohio provides interest-free loans to promote economic self-sufficiency and growth of Northeast Ohioans who are unable to access safe and fair lending resources. We rely solely on donations to support our work and mission. If you'd like to support our mission tonight or at any time, there are a few easy ways to give. HFLA started using Give Lively, a convenient and free giving platform. Give Lively also accepts ACH or bank transfers with minimal fees. You can text SAVVY, the $AVVY, to 44321 to access the giving page on your phone, or you can find the link on your computer below the video player on your screen, or you can go to our website, interestfree.org, and click the donate button. Now let's get to it. As Laura previously mentioned, we have three amazing panelists joining us this evening. Robin Hauser, an award-winning director and producer of cause-based documentary films at Finish Line Features and president of Unleashed Productions, her most recent documentary being Savvy, that came out this year. Margaret Mitchell is the president and CEO of YWCA of Greater Cleveland. For 150 years, the YWCA has worked to empower women and eliminate racism wherever it exists by any means necessary. This year, under Ms. Mitchell's leadership, the YWCA of Greater Cleveland received the YWCA USA's Excellence Award for Racial Justice in recognition of exemplary and innovative programming and advocacy. Heather Ettinger focused her passion for supporting women's financial decisions into Luma Wealth Advisors, a leading provider of financial advice for women and their families. She also has a best-selling book entitled Lumination, Shining a Light on a Woman's Journey to Financial Wellness. There's so much more to say about these three amazing women, but we want to get to the purpose of our conversation tonight. I encourage you to take time after the panel to read their complete bios and learn more about HFLA on our website, interestfree.org. We hope those of you joining us this evening had an opportunity to watch the documentary. We're going to share a short trailer before we dive into our conversation.
The million-dollar question is, why have so many women abdicated ownership of their personal finances?
Women and girls get a message pretty early that certain subjects aren't for them.
In childhood, boys are told to dream, dare, become CEO, go to the top of the jungle gym. Little girl, budget, save, don't get your dress dirty.
Studies are showing that the women least engaged with their finances are, funny enough, millennials. I have married female friends who don't know how much their husbands make. What?
My family immigrated from Dominican Republic. I didn't think about money because there was no money. As a student, I could get a student credit card. Free money is the way I perceived it. I didn't understand that there was interest. None of that was explained to me.
Women live longer than men. We tend to go in and out of the workforce to care for children or elderly parents, and we earn less.
We were living, like millions of other Americans, really just one accident or illness away from total financial ruin. I knew that whether he lived or died, things were going to be very, very hard.
It's important to get all the tea on your partner's finances. I'm talking assets, credit scores, monthly expenses, student loans. I'm gonna find out.
We are in the middle of the greatest wealth transfer on record, and that money is moving primarily into the hands of women.
When women are financially independent, the world becomes a better place. This is not just a victory for women, this is a victory for everybody.
People used to ask us, what do you do? I just said, I'm an independent investor.
You want to be the CEO of your financial life.
So, this documentary has so many important messages. I wanted to start with Heather and Margaret, and maybe Margaret, you'll kick us off by asking you to share what your greatest takeaway was from the documentary.
Thank you, Michal. It's so wonderful to be with you. And Robin, what a brilliant film. I think the movie does just a wonderful and powerful job of exposing a truth. And that is until, I should say this. I believe that we can achieve gender justice, if not in my lifetime, certainly in my daughter's lifetime. But one of the key things that has to happen is that women, and I'm including myself in this, we must take control of our finances. And this is really central. And the movie does a brilliant job of exposing this truth, sharing this truth, and really inviting us in to do just that.
Heather?
So if I can tag on to Margaret's. I think no one really tells us how to talk about finances with family, with friends, with partners. And the fact that 58% of women are taking a back seat on family finances, it's yet it's the highest source of stress. So we need to do something different and really learn how to talk about money, how to make it more comfortable, how to pull it out of shame and guilt and into seeing how it can be so powerful to help us live a more intentional life.
Robin, was this the reaction you anticipated?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much to Margaret and to Heather. Yeah, I mean, I think as a filmmaker, anytime we have the audience feel motivated to take action, or that they feel that we've exposed a truth, or just even exposed something that motivates them in any way, really, then we've done our job as filmmakers.
So, Robin, what did you in thinking when you started this project, and how did your perceptions change afterwards?
Well, I started the project because at age 50, I got divorced. And for the first time in 25 years, I was solely responsible for my financial well-being. And even though I have, a master's degree in business and a background in finance, I was shocked at what I didn't know, and what I hadn't really been paying attention to while I was married. And so that's what motivated me to make the film. I think one of the things that shocked me most when we started researching was that this isn't something just our grandmothers are doing, our mothers are doing, we might be doing, but this is getting worse. Millennials, above any other generation, are abdicating financial decisions to somebody else. And typically that's the man in their life. And was really sort of shocking to me.
So I actually, that piece of information was very unsettling to me. Can you dive a little deeper into this trend and why you think that is?
Well, it's the $1 million question, right? And we don't know exactly why. It could be a lot of things. I think it is a lot of things. I think it's the fact that women have so much on their plate. They are typically the primary caregiver for children. They also tend to be more often the primary caregiver for elderly parents or relatives. If they're working, they have that. They do the majority of volunteer work for schools and organizations. And so if there's one thing that they can delegate to somebody else, it tends to be money. Also, when you think about the financial industry, it was made by men for men. Now, not intentionally to leave out women. It's just that when the stock market was developed, this is the way things worked back then. And so lots of, with lots of acronyms and warlike analogies and sort of, tough verbiage that goes around Wall Street, it's intimidating. There's this sense of ambient disbelonging to women, right? So I think that also tends to marginalize women in that they feel a little bit intimidated to jump in and to get involved. And I also wonder if there's a little bit of what I call the Cinderella effect. Women at some point just want to be taken care of. And is that cultural? Is that our culture? Is it biological? It's hard to tell, but it's probably also contributing to the fact that, we usually don't like to deal with money.
Heather, are you seeing these kind of trends with the women you see in your work as well?
I think we definitely see these kind of trends, but I'm going to go a little farther and capitalize on what Robin already really raised, and that is how the industry approaches it is not resonating with millennials. And that really is a major issue. And yes, it's because of time. And she very well articulated all the things on their plate. But I think, too, there's a statistic out there in a recent study that 78% of women would hire an advisor if they were more focused on their quality of life versus just investment performance. And so we really need to think about that, is how are we talking about money in relationship to life, rather than, and our values and our priorities and how we want to see change in the world, as opposed to the historical way of a lot of jargon, a lot of just investment talk, and really not focusing on the life of the family. And I think the second is kind of in tandem with that, is what we are seeing amongst millennials is more interest in talking around values. So, for example, even in your scrolling messages, talking about sustainability and environmental social governance, also called ESG. If we start to talk about investments as a way that they can help change the future of the world, and particularly women who are very passionate about social change, I think we can engage them by far more than with this just investment speak, and really talk more about life, and then also how to use their investments and their money towards social change.
Thank you. Margaret, can you tell us about the women you work with and whether or not this trend is happening in your work at YWCA?
Yeah, I mean, you know, our work at the YWCA is really a microcosm. We work with women who are young, who have had a number of significant obstacles in their life when they come sometimes to live with us or be engaged in our work. And there are challenges, I mean, real challenges. Many have had their financial ID stolen. There's a deep level of distrust. And certainly when we think about finances, you know, there's just a level of social trust that is needed to be able to say, hey, I need help in this area. But we also work with women who are emerging in their careers or mid-careers, who have leadership roles. And we also see a lot of similarities among all women that we work with. But certainly Black and brown women, I certainly think and know that they just don't see themselves in this space. They don't see their lives. They don't see sort of the invitation, the disbelonging, as Robin said. I love that. And if you think about disbelonging for women in general, that message for Black and brown women is very, very, very strong. And, you know, something that we need to change. And I think this conversation, the film, and the work that Heather does, including, you know, her book, is taking us really down that road.
Heather, do you, who are your typical clients at Luma? And if they're different generations, are they asking different questions, or is it across the board, everybody kind of has the same questions?
So at Luma Wealth, our clients are predominantly high net worth and what we call emerging affluent women and their families. And yes, they are asking different questions. One of the things that we found most telling is that there is a lot more multi-generational work that gets done when women are at the table. And in fact, a client told me a few years ago when I asked her how the first year with us went, she said, Heather, do something for me and I'm grateful. You do something for one of my kids and I am indebted forever. And we were just helping the kids get launched and buy their first home and figure out how to allocate retirement savings and things like that. But I do think we see women looking across generations much more often. And that is why we really need to build advisors into our business that can better engage with them and bring them to the table and communicate with them.
Well, I'd like at this point to share a quick clip from the film where we hear the president of Charles Schwab Foundation talk about the implications of not having financial education early in life. Let's take a look.
The lack of financial literacy is a social justice issue, and it's at the root cause of so many of the big social issues we see today, whether it's workforce readiness, domestic violence, gender inequality, even economic mobility.
When you see that financial education is available to wealthier students, to largely white school districts, when only 3.9% of low-income school districts and students of color have access to this, it just compounds an already terrible problem with the racial wealth gap, the gender pay gap, the financial fragility of many millions of people.
So I think, we deal with so many social justice issues these days, but we don't necessarily think of financial education as a social justice issue. But financial literacy education, it's a tool that everyone deserves and shouldn't be viewed as a luxury. At HFLA, we see how this often affects women and communities of color. And without this education, women are ill prepared and lack the confidence to make important financial decisions that affect their futures. Heather, you had served on a board of a K through 12 school. How do these conversations happen in the educational spaces?
Well, I will be perfectly honest, they don't happen frequently enough. And in an ideal world, we'd build them into the curriculum. And then when the kids were home, they'd be talking about what they did in school with their parents. And that would also help tee up some conversations around the dinner table. But I think it is coming in really as additional programming. But this is what I would tell anybody that is running a school today. There are studies out there that say 50% of kids say they believe money management skills are by far more important for their lives than math at 18%. And then it goes down from there to social studies and the sciences. So kids want to learn these things. And I think that's really important. So we need some tools and we need a curriculum built around it. But I also would suggest thinking about panels where you can bring different people in to talk about what are they doing in their own families or what have they seen work in families. That can be really helpful. And then another thing that we've seen at Luma is we have summer interns that are young women, and they are so passionate in this space that they created a program to take back to their schools. And that actually, well, I'll tell you the first chapter, to take it back to school, and they did it with their friends. And is it the way I would necessarily do it? Probably not. But the best part is it's a peer-to-peer program on raising financial literacy. And we are now going to be taking that program out more broadly. And the beauty of it is, I think it really resonates with these teenagers. So schools need to think about that. Or maybe it's their entrepreneur program that they're running, or different areas where they can bring it in. It's really, really important. And fascinating to me is 55% of students say they're excited when adults talk about money. And so they want it. We've got to figure out how to deliver it better than we do today.
So if the schools aren't necessarily doing it, can they do anything to help parents model good financial habits? Anything we can send home with parents?
Well, I think again, there are a lot of resources, and we need to take what is going on in school and then also, if you will, have tools that are taken home to have those conversations around the table. So I think it's panels. I think it's really raising the awareness. And even in the private schools, you have plenty of kids that do not have financial means or families that don't have financial means. So this is a much broader issue. It's not just in the public schools or the private schools. It's across all schools that need to be thinking about this. And I do think, again, if it's not addressed, and we're talking about girls in particular, then it seeps into not having the confidence to negotiate and the gender gap disparity in pay. So there are lots of resources out there. And at Luma, actually, even on our website, we give a lot of resources. Some of my favorites are a book called On My Own 2 Feet. There's a YouTube that was developed by a young woman that I've met through the industry called Wealthy for Real. There's Savvy Ladies and the Foundation for Financial Planning that also, they're both nonprofits, provide great advice for families. And hopefully also my book does. But as I said, at Luma Wealth, our emails and our newsletters are really focused on helping educate families around money and give a lot of good tools there.
Margaret, what do you know of any resources outside of schools, particularly for those in the Black and Brown communities, individuals that might have low to moderate income, for them to work on financial education?
There are a number of nonprofit organizations that really cater in this space. And I know that Robin and Heather will continue to provide resources, as will HFLA. But, I wanted to say that I think there's so many real world instances where young people, young women can really dig into this space. And sometimes the programs are so far from reality. Many of the programs in which young people are engaged, that it's hard to get excited about, financial literacy, but really sort of learning how to, say for a car or a home or this or that, is really engages. And then the stock market itself, when you start to get excited about what that can do, but man, at the end of the day, and I love how the film did this, we have a real barrier that we all need to move through that even prevent us from getting to the resources. And that barrier lives between our two ears. But there are resources out there, and I know you all have done a great job of pulling those together. But what's happening in between our ears is really just a huge barrier for us as women.
Robin, I think you had something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's I'm jumping in here. First of all, yes, we need to teach, as Margaret says, relevant financial literacy courses in school. Relevant, right? Like you want at the right age to teach them the right thing that makes sense to them. But if that's not happening, we can't just depend on our parents to teach us. In some cases, these are kids who are first generation high school, first generation college. So first of all, we have to change our culture. We have to make it okay for women to talk about money. We have to somehow erase this taboo that women aren't supposed to talk about money. Men have an advantage because it's culturally more acceptable for them to stand around and talk about, what they just invested in, or some new, cryptocurrency, or some ETF that just did well, or a new IPO. And women might be at the same cocktail party feeling a little bit intimidated by that kind of talk if they don't know about it. And yet if I turned to somebody and said, hey, where are you investing your 401k? They're going to look at me completely shocked, because that's not appropriate conversation. And so therefore we don't learn from each other. We don't have that advantage, which is unfortunate. I also wonder where's the responsibility of the institutions in all this? If it's so easy to get a credit card, when my kids were graduated from college, they received, and I'm not joking, they must have received 15 invitations a week to different credit cards. And so I understand that these banks are companies, they need to make a profit, but I'd also like to know, if it's so easy to get a credit card, and if in the United States we need a credit card to establish credit, which is hugely important, who's teaching us what APR is? And how to avoid, and the fact that we can't just pay the minimum every month without having horribly compounding interest, rates building up. Who's going to teach us and our kids how important it is to pay off the balance every single month, and how a credit card even works, and what we need to establish good credit? These are things that are so important.
So, and we just talked about school age and preparing people, but what about someone in their mid-50s or even 60s? I believe it's never too late to begin, but how do you begin educating yourself later in life? Heather, do you
Well,
want to
I mean,
start, or Robin? Okay.
so I would just really quickly say that, luckily these days with technology, there are some really good ways. If somebody's ashamed to ask questions, if someone thinks, "Gosh, I have a college degree, I should know what APR is," and if they don't know, thank goodness for technology, we can get on NerdWallet or or any of these other really great sort of apps or online and find out what these definitions mean. Heather mentioned earlier Savvy Ladies. Savvy Ladies is a group of women who are CPAs. They are financial planners certified. They will, for free, help advise you and talk through money issues with you. If you want to start saving, there's so many different apps now with acorns and different really accessible apps that can help you start to save and to invest.
I don't know, Margaret or Heather, do you have anything to add to that? Margaret? Yeah.
There's a line I love in the film where a young woman says, "Money, what money?" Like the concept of even having money to save or to invest can seem foreign or feel really foreign. And I think for so many women, one of the very early mistakes that we make is not being really good caretakers of our credit score. And yet, we talk about where to start or when to start. It's never too late to start. And financial abuse, which comes through as a reality in the film, and something I think we all know to be true and lives in many different forms, is present. The wealth gap is present, and yet it's never too late to get started. That's what I'm hoping, Heather. It's never too late, and it's so critical to continue to grow. It's a learning opportunity. And I think, again, sort of putting aside fear, pride, shame, lack of knowledge, and, sort of stepping in. It's like hiring a therapist, I mean, you get to a point where you're in enough pain and, you take the leap, you go over the threshold. And I think that's what we have to begin doing, is telling our stories and talking more and shifting the narrative bit by bit. So, from one end to the other, I think women of all economic backgrounds sort of suffer in this space.
I think
So-
Robin and Margaret covered it well. So.
Okay. Well, we asked the audience to submit questions about or related to the film as they watched yesterday, and we did get some great questions from the community. We had a lot of questions about investing. So, Heather, I'm going to target you on this one and kind of give you the whole bit, and then I'll have you answer how you'd like. So, is the stock market still a safe investment? Does someone need to have a financial advisor in order to start? And what are other ways to invest that are not investing in the stock market? And do you need a specific amount to get started?
Wow. Well, that could be another hour long. So let me start with a story, and then and maybe even two stories to make the point. So when my grandfather died at a very young age and left some money to both my aunt and my dad. And my aunt asked some questions around risk and was kind of told, "Don't worry your pretty little head. We'll take care of you," by an advisor. And my dad educated himself and was very financially savvy and took a different route. So my aunt was put in very conservative investments, and it was a large sum of money. And my dad was invested in the stock market. 3 decades later, my dad was checking with her on something around those funds and discovered that he had 3 times as much money as she did, just because of how she was treated around risk and her questions, and not really being able to come forward with more information and the fact that he was in the stock market and she was in some conservative bonds. So it is important to ask those questions. The second I will tell you is really looking at the retirement side. So there's Terry, who at 22 years old is making $50,000 a year, and she decides to put away $5,000 over the next 10 years. So a total of $50,000. And then there's Sally. Sally is juggling a family, can't put away the money, and so she waits 20 years until she's 42. And at that point, she's earning more money. So she puts in $10,000 a year for 10 years, $100,000. At retirement, guess who has more money? It's Terry, who put in the money earlier, let it compound for her. And she only put in 50,000 and Sally put in 100,000. And she had almost 3 times as much money as Sally. So what I would tell you about investing in the stock market is, first of all, be diversified. Don't put in too many eggs in any one basket. And I am a fan of low-cost funds, such as exchange-traded funds and things like that. But be diversified. But if you do that, it should be with funds that you know you're not going to touch for 5 years or more. If this is something you're going to need in the next 2 years to buy a house, no, you shouldn't be investing in the stock market. But keep in mind, with inflation, when inflation goes up, if you stick it in the bank, where you're getting, I don't know, 0.1% right now, and inflation starts to run up to 3, 4, 5%, you're losing the purchasing power of that dollar every day. You're basically, at the end of a year, you've lost 5% if there's 5% inflation versus making money. So it is important to take some risk with your funds that you can afford to. And I think, as far as what do you need to have a financial advisor? Well, we've already talked about the fact that Savvy Ladies, also the Foundation for Financial Planning, will help with financial planning first. And that is really important for women because it's getting to know you and what's unique about you. We do this at Luma. And 96% of women say the most important thing before you give me any advice is that you show you understand what's unique about me and my family. So that's really an important starting place, is the financial planning side, so that it gives you the framework by which to decide, should you be in stocks, should you be in other types of investments. And I think that is really important. Some of the resources that are out there that I know and trust that just about anybody can use is Ellevest, which is designed by women for women. They also have financial planners, and their costs tend to be relatively low. Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity, they tend to be pretty good in this space as well. But one request I would have is ask for a female advisor. We need more of them in the industry. I think they may listen to you a little bit better. And I think they will resonate more with you, make you feel a little bit more sense of trust. And they'll also appreciate that you don't have a lot of time and will try to make it as efficient as they can for you.
Thank you. Margaret, the film certainly takes a deep dive on women and finances. It also talks a bit more briefly about multiplied impact on the Black and Brown communities. Can you talk about some of the specific challenges facing these communities? While over 60% of HFLA's lending goes to women, over 75% takes place in the Black and Brown communities. So we're seeing this as well.
Yeah, I think that there's real need to, be truth tellers, that, financial services has not been a welcoming place for Black and Brown individuals. And the strong messaging that we get is, we don't belong here. And I think oftentimes when we think about the stock market, we're thinking about generational wealth. We have this image of a number in mind. And, if you're not there, then it isn't really, for you. And I think it's so important for us to begin to change that. Heather was talking about just the numbers of women who are financial planners, and then even just the smaller number, I think she said 4% are going to be women of color. And so this is really huge, but there is reality in what the wage gap does and its impact on us over time. There's also when we think about the Black tax and how we are often, if you are an emerging leader, emerging into affluence in the Black community, then you are often leaned on to be caretakers and support, for others. And so there's a great burden that we often carry. I think it's important for us to begin thinking about what defining the wage gap or closing the wage gap is going to mean for everyone, but particularly Black and brown women across this country. And it is, I don't know, it's so fascinating that the numbers in the stock market are so low. That is it's just a head scratcher. But I think it comes back to money, what money? If you're not speaking to me about investing a little bit of money that I have, it just seems so far out of reach. And we really have to change that narrative.
Thank you. Robin, where can people look for more information on budgeting, investing, money management, for beginners?
We've mentioned a lot of them. We've mentioned NerdWallet and Ellevest. Money Masters is another one to look into. Khan Academy, Napkin Finance. There are also some really great podcasts. Farnoosh Torabi does So Money, which I think is really fun. Planet Money, The Dave Ramsey Show. So, luckily between podcasts and different websites, if you want, you can even pay for financial classes if you want to. There are a lot of resources out there. And I also wanted to follow up on what Heather and Margaret were saying. And I think what people need to know now is that investing is accessible because now you can invest as little as $5. And I think people always assumed you have to be wealthy to invest, or you have to have, minimum of $250,000. And yes, there are financial advisors that require that. But you can also, through Schwab, for example, buy a slice of a company if you wanted to. You can even put just a little bit of money into an ETF, which is an exchange traded fund, as Heather mentioned earlier, which is somewhat less risky because you're not putting all your money into one company, right? This is a group of companies. So, that's what's interesting to know, is that you can actually do this. You can do it, even with a little bit of money. And when you think about the amount of money that a lot of people put toward, buying a lottery ticket, for example, and if you just took that money and saved it up every week that you were going to buy that lotto ticket, or, your chances are so low. But if you invest that money and you take advantage of compounding interest, as Heather gave a really great example of before, that money will grow, and it's passive growth. That money will grow for you, which is really important.
Thank you. So just to let all of you that are listening know, we have compiled a list of resources on our website, including many of the ones highlighted in the film. So Margaret, I'll get to you in a second. If you click the button below the chat box, you can learn more. Margaret, what did you want to add?
I just wanted to add that, there's a growing stat among women in homelessness. One of the largest populations that we are seeing are women over the age of 55 who have worked their entire lives and not really planned well for their future. And, this is a scary, looming reality. And I think it's important for us and for young women to acknowledge this and, make a sharp right turn and, begin to be bold about our finances, because imagine the fastest growing population of homeless women are women over the age of 55 who have worked their entire lives.
Wow.
Yeah, there's
Heather,
a frightening
you wanted to say
statistic.
something?
Oh, I was just
Yeah,
going to
so
say that.
I did want to say, and Margaret's actually familiar with the work I've done around breadwinner women. This is also, maybe Robin, this is your next film. There's a real corporate gap here. So we don't do a good job in this country of educating employees. And women are particularly suspicious. So in the study I did around breadwinner women, 46% said they knew they were leaving benefits on the table. They weren't taking advantage. And also in that study, they said not only is the financial services industry letting them down, but their corporations are letting them down. And if we think about it, why does that happen? Well, A, we already know we don't have enough time. And what happens with those benefits is you're expected to go to the program on healthcare benefits, then one on maybe supplemental insurance, one on your 401k or 403b, another one on flex spending accounts, and I could keep going. And so the women say, heck, I don't have time for any of this. And not only that, the people that are leading the education are usually trying to sell something, which women really don't like. So we need to have more education at the corporate level of how women can take better advantage of their benefits and really save them time because they don't have it. And then also on the investment side, there is a falsehood out there that women are more risk adverse. They aren't. I can tell you after 35 years of doing this, they aren't. What happens is the default is more conservative. So if they aren't making their elections properly, either to save as much as they should and maximize those plans, or to also make sure those investments are in the stock markets and well diversified, they could end up on the street, literally. So I think it's really, really important that we push corporations to do a better job of cohesive education programs that are balanced and somebody is not trying to sell you product.
Okay. So I did want to share a little piece of good news out of Ohio. We need to share good news when there is. The Ohio Senate passed a bill requiring that all students, starting with next year's freshman class, have a half credit of financial literacy to graduate from high school. It's a small step, but it's the right direction. So we will take that. So those were fantastic questions from our viewers, and this conversation has so many layers, and we know we don't have time to get to all of our audience questions, but we do plan for this dialogue to be ongoing, and to just stay tuned to our social media channels and your inbox for follow-up. As we near the end of our time together, I'd like to share one last clip from the film that I believe speaks to a critical piece of women and the financial empowerment puzzle. Let's take a look.
No one tells you how to talk about finances with your friends or your family or your romantic partners.
Talking about money can be really hard for people. It has all sorts of shame associated with it, or all of your hopes and dreams.
A lot of people have this assumption, when I make a certain amount of money, I'll be okay, or my financial worries will disappear.
You know, the way I talked and the way that I acted, like 100% didn't see it reflected in the financial industry, in the books I was reading, in the videos I was watching. Like, I was inspired by that content, but it didn't feel relatable to me.
So one of these things underlying this entire discussion, and it's already been brought up, is the stigma and shame surrounding conversations about money. You know, some of the best advice is passed down from generation to generation or amongst friends. How do we create more spaces for these conversations? And how do we even start these conversations? Robin, do you want to start?
Well, I think hopefully we start by showing this film and getting the film out there. And that's really what I can do at this point to try to change this, cultural taboo around speaking about money. And I think that it's important to, at least with your partner to start with, and then of course with your children, but with your partner, if you're in a relationship where you're not the one handling money and you want to know more, it's really okay actually in a relationship if you have division of labor and if your partner is the one that invests the money, because maybe he or she is the one that is most well versed in that subject. That's okay. But you need to know what's going on. You have to have full transparency. You need to know how much debt you have. You need to know how much money you're saving for retirement. These are important topics and questions. So I like to say, and it's about timing, tact, and tone. And I think that in the right time and space to say, hey, can we sit down and I'd really love to understand a little bit more about money. I think that the truth is there are many, many husbands, men out there who would welcome a little help in this area, or would welcome and would feel much relieved if their partners or wives were to understand what's going on. Because if you were to suddenly become widowed or suddenly divorced, you need to know this stuff. It's essential. So I would say the first thing to do is to start talking to your partner about money and just say that you want to learn more about it. You realize you've taken a back seat, and now you want to get a little bit more involved, or at least become fully aware of your financial situation.
Margaret?
The film is a beautiful example of storytelling, and Heather's book is another beautiful example of storytelling. And I think that we as women have to be empowered to tell our own stories about money and what we know and what we don't know. And the more we share, the more we talk about it, the more we are willing to be vulnerable and share the story. I think we have an opportunity to turn the corner. And, I think that's what's so exciting about the film and Heather's book, is that you really get to dive in and hear and know other people's stories. And then you begin reflecting like, I have a story. I have a story, and it's got some strengths and a lot of weaknesses to it. But the more we're willing to share and be transparent, I think we're going to help more women, and particularly young women.
Heather?
So I'm going to tell a story then, Margaret. I think, really what is important in families, and we're going into Thanksgiving, which is a great time to start talking about family legacies, family histories, businesses that maybe, or jobs that people had that worked or didn't work. But the story I'm going to tell is in 2008, 2009, of course, we had a crisis in the financial markets beyond what most of us had ever seen before. And with my career being tied to the financial markets, my husband and I decided it was a really good time to sit the kids down, even though they were relatively young, and talk about our budget and talk about what we learned in reviewing it and what was going to have to change given the financial environment we were in. And I will tell you, the first aha was how much we spent on takeout. And that had to change right away because it's often a lot higher than you think it is. But by doing a good look at what you're spending your money on, and does it align with your values? And for us, it was an aha moment. So we sat the three kids down and we said, okay, here's what we know. Education is the most important thing that we spend our money on, because that's the one gift other than love that we can give you that no one can take away. So we are not going to cut the funds for education. Number two, spending time together as a family is really what we're all about. And we're still going to go on vacation this year, but we're not going to take airplanes. We're not going to therefore have a rental car. We're going to drive this year. We're going to stay in a lower cost condo while we're in Florida, but we'll be together. And that's the important thing. And then we went through the things that really didn't align with our values, like the money we were spending on cable TV that we really didn't use. And when one daughter squawked, I said, it's $20 a month. If you want to pay it, it's all yours. $240 for the year. She did the math pretty quickly in her head. And she said, Mom, we really don't watch very many movies and don't use it. Why are we spending that? Aha. So I think it is important to align it around values, but also, to Margaret's point, be vulnerable, share what you learned, share the mistakes that you've made, because I think part of the shame comes about because there is this ridiculous image that you have to be perfect in this area. No one is. I can tell you, I work with a lot of really smart financial people. They all make mistakes at times. So be vulnerable, share those stories across generations. And as I said, Thanksgiving's a really good time to also ask more about family legacy and what are the important values that have been handed down over generations, and think about that in relationship to money.
And I'll just go and say that at HFLA, we're hearing from people daily who are in hard, stressful financial situations. And again, we get back to there's a lot of shame there. And we just try and remind people everybody needs help sometimes. And it's okay to ask for help. And we're there for a reason. So anyway, we're wrapping up, and I have a final question for each of you, which is, what would you like viewers to walk away with tonight? So Heather, let's start with you.
So I would say in the future is now, and that learning about financial literacy is self-care. Knowledge is power. And keep in mind, it also means saving on taxes, saving on fees, yes, building your wealth faster by investing, but it's all about living a more intentional life. So it's self-care, and that self-care can help you to living a more intentional life. Just take that one next step. Just take one next step to start educating yourself.
Great. Margaret?
I would say be bold and courageous. Recognize that area that you have not pulled the curtain back on. Pull the curtain back and be bold and courageous about your finances. Do one bold thing and one courageous thing, and keep doing that year after year. Tell your story.
Robin?
I'm going to reiterate, talk about money. Talk to your partner. If you have a partner, talk to your partner, your spouse about money. If you're the person that handles money, great. Talk to your partner about money. I think it's so important. Have full transparency, really devote yourself to knowing what is going on in your financial life.
So I want to thank all of our panelists for sharing their time with us. Robin, Heather, and Margaret, it's been such a pleasure, and we appreciate the knowledge you've shared with our audience today. Robin, can you tell our viewers if there's anywhere they can expect to catch the film next?
We're on the film festival circuit. So we're going to Naples, Florida. We're going to, well, not physically going, sadly, but it'll be at the Maui Film Festival, the Whistler, which is in Canada, Whistler Film Festival, the Hollywood Women's Independent Film Festival. So check out our website, finishlinefeaturefilms.com, and we'll list all the screenings there. A lot of them are virtual so that you can jump on and watch it. Or we're doing private screenings with companies, with organizations, with schools. So again, just get on our website, finishlinefeaturefilms.com, and contact me, and I'll help you through the, arrange the screening.
Okay. All right. Thank you to all of you at home who've joined us virtually today and during our virtual dialogues. We're so grateful to all of those who have shared their personal experiences and advice during these community conversations over the past few months. Thank you again to our sponsors for making the screening and tonight's discussion free and accessible to the public. We also thank all the individuals who donated as part of this event. Again, if you'd like to make a donation to support the work of HFLA, you can text SAVVY $AVVY to 44321 to access the giving page on your phone. You can find the link on your computer below the video player on your screen, or you can go to our website, interestfree.org, and click the donate button. As we've discussed many times, this is a topic near and dear to the work done at HFLA, so we thank you for caring about this topic as well. We invite you to share your thoughts and experiences related to this topic on your social media channels. Be sure to tag HFLA of Northeast Ohio and the Finish Line feature films. We would love to stay connected. HFLA is hosting another virtual community conversation on this topic on October 20th. You can visit our website, interestfree.org, or follow us on social media for more information about the dialogues and about HFLA. Thank you again to all of you for a great dialogue, and have a good night.